Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk a little official visit weekend. Clemson's got a huge recruiting weekend, as I'm sure you guys know, coming up this weekend. A lot of big name recruits, some 5-star guys, bunch of 4-stars. We'll get into that in tonight's show. We'll talk a little off-season workouts and some progress that's being made by a few key players in the 2024 season as far as Clemson is concerned. And then we will also talk about the college football game. We'll talk a little bit of around college football, and then we'll wrap it all up with the comment section and let you guys kind of drive the last bit of the show. But before we get into tonight's show, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We're pretty close to 5,000 subscribers, inching ever so closely. So if you guys can help us get over that milestone, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, this is a live video, so go ahead and hit that like button while you're in here. Get your comments in the comment section. As you guys know, me and Jordan, every single show, at the end of the show, we get to the comment section for about 30 minutes or so and just let you guys ask questions and get our comments on various topics that you guys want to talk about. So if that sounds like something you want to do, go ahead and get your comments in. And also, if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, go ahead and hit that super chat feature. One, it'll help support what we do here, obviously. And then two, it will ensure that your comment or question, whatever you put in there, is read and responded to on the live show. Okay, guys. So really appreciate all of you guys showing up tonight. We got 7 people in the live chat already. If you are watching in the rewatch, thank you guys so much. As always, we will put timestamps for each individual topic that we cover tonight. And without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. This is, we're finally here. This weekend is definitely one of the highlights of the offseason. You and I both have been busy, so it's been hard to like really keep track of everything.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to cover what should be a really successful and exciting weekend for the Tigers as far as Clemson recruiting is concerned. Because obviously we don't really have another weekend like other schools do during the summer. So, I always look forward to this and, the returns out of it. It's been especially since Clemson didn't used to do it at all. It's definitely been one of the highlights of the offseason and, getting the string of commitments, and stuff like that. And let's hopefully we'll see another round of that. I'm just ready to get down to the brass tacks, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like you said before, it's been a really busy week for the both of us. It's kind of hard to keep up with the ever-changing list of recruits that will be in tow this weekend in Clemson, South Carolina for the big official visit weekend that we've been doing for about 3 years now. But, I couldn't be more excited to be here tonight, ready to get this show started. Let's give a shout-out to the comment section real quick. Shout-out to the 10 people that are in the live chat. Jackson Johnson is in here. Droid132 is in here. Thank you for showing up. John Sarian. That's the comments that we got so far. So you guys go ahead and keep commenting. We'll star your comments. We'll get to them later on in the show. And with that said, Jordan, let's just get right into the show tonight. Let's go ahead and bring up our first topic of the night. And obviously, we're going to kick the show off with really what's on every single Clemson football fan's mind, at least, is the big official recruiting weekend that Clemson is about to have. It starts Friday. It goes through Saturday. We'll have some recruits that we'll get into later. Will show up a little bit later in the weekend due to scheduling conflicts and other things like that. But this official visit weekend has been paying huge dividends over the past probably 3 seasons now since Dabo Swinney has decided to add an official visit weekend to Clemson's summer schedule. If you guys remember back not too long ago, Clemson did not do any officials in the summertime. We didn't do any official visits. It was all during fall and spring and that sort of time frame. But Dabo Swinney a couple years ago decided that he would open up and make it one huge push for a big recruiting weekend for Clemson, and it has paid huge dividends every single year since we have been doing it. And Jordan, we got some huge names coming into town, into Clemson this weekend. So we expect to have some big time commits coming out of this weekend. Hopefully, get that ball rolling, much like it did last year and the year before. This is kind of the big push. Now, Clemson's recruiting class has done well so far for the 2025 recruiting class, but this recruiting weekend in past seasons has really got some big names to commit to Clemson and really kind of started a snowball effect heading into summer and then into fall and obviously into early signing period, which is December. So I'm going to go ahead and rattle off this lengthy list of individuals that will be visiting Clemson this weekend. Obviously, every single recruit that is already verbally committed for the 2025 cycle will be on campus this weekend. So all 11 of our current verbal recruits for the 2025 cycle will be in Clemson. So we don't need to go through that list, I don't think. But as far as the prospects that will be in town, we got 5-star offensive tackle, obviously probably the biggest target in this class, left uncommitted, is offensive tackle David Sanders out of Charlotte, North Carolina, up in your stomping grounds or near your stomping grounds, Jordan. Obviously the number 1 offensive tackle, number 3 national player. If Clemson could land this guy coming out of this weekend, it would be absolutely massive. It cannot be understated how big that would be. We got 4-star edge Bryce Davis out of Greensboro coming in. 4-star cornerback Grayson Littleton, he's coming in. You said a little bit later. He won't be in there this weekend, but he is still taking an official visit soon to Clemson.
Yeah, June 3rd through the 5th.
June 3rd through the 5th. So beginning of next week, he'll be in Clemson all week and just kind of do it. So obviously Dabo showing a little bit of flexibility there. When he first rolled out this summer recruiting visit, it was hard and fast. You either made it for the weekend or you didn't make it. But he's showing some flexibility there, so that's always good in the recruiting world. 4-star Aquan Fagus, 4-star Jordan Young, 4-star inside offensive lineman Chauncey Gooden. Let's see, 4-star defensive lineman Christian Garrett, 4-star Gregory Xavier Thomas out of Fort Lauderdale. We got 4-star wide receiver Cortez Mills, trying to keep that good streak of wide receiver recruiting that we've been doing lately, Jordan. 4-star inside offensive lineman Mario Nash. 3-star cornerback Devon Starr. 3-star linebacker Kamar Archie. 3-star offensive tackle Mal Waltrip. 3-star inside offensive line Hardy Watts. He is going to be a little bit late. He has a scheduling conflict, so he won't be there on Friday or Saturday, but I believe he's showing up on Sunday and staying for 2 days on campus. So he'll be there through, I think, Monday and Tuesday right there on campus visiting with Clemson and the coaching staff, and then rounded out with the last 3 that are obviously confirmed. Now, this list is subject to change. Names could be added. Names could be falling off. But 3-star inside offensive lineman Max Buchanan, 3-star defensive lineman Walter Mathis, and 3-star offensive tackle Rowan Byrne out of New Rochelle, New Jersey. Okay, so obviously that's a pretty exhaustive list. There's a lot of players there. We're going to kind of go through and highlight a few, but clearly, Jordan, there's a common denominator within that list of big-time recruits that are going to be on Clemson's campus this weekend, and obviously there's a push for offensive line. You can clearly see it. Matt Luke is geared up for a huge push this weekend, trying to close the deal on some big-time recruits or at least make some big headway on some of these big-time recruits. So obviously offensive line is going to be a focus this weekend, but it will not be the only focus. What's your thoughts on this big list of recruits that Clemson has coming in, what are the guys that stand out to you the most?
Yeah, I definitely think that this go around, the emphasis in this class was certainly the trenches, as you pointed out. The offensive line, stands out heavily. There's a lot of offensive line prospects that are going to be on campus, but also Clemson is still trying to round out that defensive line class. Christian Garrett is the guy, really, at this point. He's kind of going to put the bow on this defensive line class if they can land him. And the ball is sort of in his court there. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, the emphasis was the line of scrimmage, obviously, because last cycle, his skill positions, landing the big fish at wide receiver was massive. So that this go around, obviously Clemson is trying to build up and become more of a trenches program. I mean, they have been that way on the defensive side of the ball for many years, but they're trying to get that way on the offensive side as well. And obviously, the offensive line class is headlined by five-star offensive tackle David Sanders. Kind of the big fish everybody's talking about. It's been a highly followed recruitment. Clemson at different points in his recruitment has gotten a lot of momentum. But other schools, since he last was on campus, have certainly come in and see some of that. So we'll see kind of what sort of happens. You're battling Ohio State, you're battling Georgia, you're battling Tennessee. It's going to be a tight race, and we're going to see kind of who winds up in the finish line. But obviously, Clemson gets their crack at him this weekend, and we'll kind of see how that goes. And then the other thing I wanted to note is, Clemson is still looking to kind of finalize and land their linebacker prospects. And kind of round that out, Kamar Archie is the number one priority. We'll see kind of how that goes. Clemson, I think, has done a really good job with him, but we will, continue to monitor that and see whether they can get a commitment coming out this weekend, or is it going to be something that happens later in the summer. Going back to the offensive line, wanted to also mention Mal Waldrop. And Hardy Watts. Hardy Watts is a guy that has kind of his recruitment is still kind of taking off a little bit. He's been slower in the process. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Clemson to get a lot of momentum and kind of crack that door open, because he's kind of been, just kind of feeling things out. He hasn't really been in a rush to really, sort out like who his top schools are. So Clemson getting that first crack is really, really nice in landing that first impression. As far as defensive back goes, a priority target at safety is Jordan Young out of Monroe. He's about as close to a Clemson fit as as far as like the between the commits and the prospects that Clemson is still pursuing. I mean, he's about as close to a fit as there is. I mean, other than Gideon Davidson, I think Gideon Davidson was kind of the biggest layup I think I've ever seen in Clemson recruiting. Like, that was like knowing his story and his background and his family. It was a match made in heaven. But Jordan Young, he screams, Clemson whenever, from everybody I've talked to around that program. He's kind of gotten a jump as far as his recruiting rankings has gone, and certainly that's gotten a lot of other interest from schools, Tennessee most notably, and of course NC State has been heavy on him as well. But I still feel really good about where Clemson stands, and he wants to commit on his birthday, which is in the month of June. So Clemson getting that first official visit and obviously already being high up there, I think that's a really favorable situation for the Tigers. Right. As far as other defensive backs, wanted to point out Anquan Fagans is obviously he's a very high caliber prospect, top 100 kid. We'll kind of see how that goes. That recruitment, I don't get the vibe that this is going to go any further after the official visit. We will see. I think that's partially why they reached out and have gone after Zay Thomas. And I think they've kind of given him pause. He's a guy that they've been considering a Florida State lean at different points in his recruitment, but Clemson's offer has certainly given him a lot to think about. And obviously this official visit weekend will definitely give Clemson the opportunity to move the needle a little bit. But all in all, I think this is a really, talented defensive line class. I'm sorry, not defensive line class, just offensive line class in general. And I think that Clemson getting, commitments out of this weekend from really any of them would be great. And, you already have Easton Ware committed and Brandon Jacobs, which is already is a really strong start. Love both of them, especially Brandon Jacobs as prospects. And so adding, continuing to build on that offensive line class can only help. You're trying to create that paradigm shift at offensive line with Matt Luke. And this is a very important class for him. Wide receiver, I also wanted to point out, Cortez Mills is definitely the priority there. I think you've done a good job, recruiting him, but he's got the call. He's got a lot of people around him, calling him to stay at home and play for Miami, who is the other school that's been heavily involved with him. So we'll kind of see what returns they get out of this official visit weekend. And that being said, on four-star edge Bryce Davis, that's a recruitment that at different points I thought Clemson had a really good chance to win, but I think Georgia has definitely done the best job and seized some really good control of that recruitment. So I think Clemson has a shot, and we'll kind of see what happens, but not optimistic about my chances, about Clemson's chances there, which is why I think, Christian Garrett is the guy that Clemson is really zeroing in on this weekend, and we'll kind of see, whether they actually land him.
Yeah, man, look, absolutely. What a list of talent coming to Clemson. Obviously, Clemson is not going to land every single one of these guys. There's not enough scholarships to go around. But they have been able to make a lot of headway in years past and close the deal, sometimes surprisingly, with a few guys in past seasons with this big official visit weekend. It helps that you're going to have all 11 of your current verbal commits from the 2025 cycle, especially a guy like Gideon Davison, who's just been out there doing the Lord's work for Clemson's 2025 class, as has Blake Keibert and, a few of the other guys there. They seem to be a really tight class. They seem to be a class that stays in touch and really try to put some pressure on some other guys. David Sanders comes to mind. I've heard, some Clemson reporters and stuff talk about David Sanders and talk about how, he's hired an NIL team and what does that mean for Clemson? Everybody knows Clemson doesn't really lead with NIL when it comes to recruiting. Not that they don't offer anything, not that there's not packages or money out there to be made at Clemson. There's obviously is, but it's not something that Clemson's going to lead with. They're clearly not going to get into bidding wars with anybody. So that'll be interesting, I think, coming out of this weekend, how David Sanders feels about Clemson. I'm sure he'll be on a high. I'm sure he'll say a lot of great things about Clemson. But the fact of the matter is Clemson gets the first of his 4 big official visits of the summer. He's about to go on a string of 4 big official visits, and we got some stiff competition out there for that guy. It'd be great if we could pull him. But, hearing Jason Priester talk about him and things like that, it's not, he doesn't get the warm and fuzzies about him. I don't know. I know he's, grew up really close to Clemson, grew up, kind of a Clemson fan. But at the end of the day, I think him and his family are going to make what they think is the best decision for them. It's not going to be based off of childhood fandom or anything like that. But, I think the trenches are going to be super important this weekend. Obviously, Matt Luke sealing the deal on a few guys would be ideal, shoring up that defensive line like you talked about. and then a few of the other key positions, linebacker and defensive back. Clemson's got a lot of work to do this weekend, but in the past, this has been a huge momentum shift for Clemson. Every single season, almost, you can rest assured that immediately following our official visit weekend, we're going to get a couple recruits, and then it kind of snowballs into several more recruits, and we really gain momentum out of this. So with that said, Jordan, is there any guys that you want? I know, we're not in the business of making predictions. This guy's going to commit this weekend or that guy's going to commit this weekend, but what is your just overall feelings on Clemson's chances of getting a few commits either this weekend or in the short week to follow this weekend? Do you see them gaining momentum and getting a few guys to verbally commit and kind of jumpstart the momentum for this summer and this 2025 class?
Yeah, I think so. It's just kind of hard, with how Clemson, kind of structures their official visit weekend. I mean, they are very strategic with how they kind of do it. And bringing certain guys on campus, and especially guys with of the similar positions, and obviously spots are limited. There's definitely a lot of ways that Clemson kind of goes about it. Just kind of not necessarily pressuring the kids to make a decision they don't want to, but just making it known that, hey, it's like I can't guarantee a spot will be here.
Right.
And so, I definitely think that Clemson is going to come out of this with at least a couple in the following week. I feel really good about a couple. I'm not in the business of making predictions, so I'm not going to say. I think I kind of made it clear when I was talking about some of these prospects who I felt, was kind of on commit watch, if you want to say it. But I don't want to, make any sort of like crystal ball prediction, because that's not what I am. I'm not a recruiting analyst. I'm just a guy that follows recruiting, and I'm lucky enough to know people, at some of these schools from some of these prospects, but I'm not an insider. I don't know these kids personally. So I am not in the business of making those kind of predictions, but I do think that, Clemson has a really good shot at coming out with a couple. If I had to set the over under for, this weekend or the following week, I'd say 2.5.
Right.
I think 3 is very, very, very possible. Who knows? Maybe even more, because that's kind of the thing about this official visit weekend is some guys that you weren't really sure. It's like, oh, is he going to? I don't really think he's going to carry his recruitment. I don't think he's going to stop his recruitment, immediately after this weekend. I think he's going to carry it into the deep into the summer, maybe potentially into the fall. In some cases, there have been guys like that, and then all of a sudden, they've released a commitment edit, and they're Tigers. So it's like, that's kind of always one of the fun parts about this weekend is like you just don't know, because sometimes all it takes is just one really good experience for these guys, for you to really swing momentum in these recruitments, and that's kind of what the cool thing about what Clemson does, and how they've gone about structuring this official visit weekend. So really excited about this, about the group that's coming in, and this is a very important class for a lot of reasons. The Tigers definitely want to knock it out of the park here.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, like it seems like every single year since we've been doing this big official visit weekend in the summer, the May, June timeframe, it seems like every year there's a guy that we didn't really expect, or, we were like, no, I don't think he's going to, shut it down. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, he committed. And then boom, you got another, and it's just the snowball effect. And, just looking back to last season, right? Like those dudes that immediately committed after the big official recruiting weekend, we held on to every single one of those dudes. Not a single one of those dudes decommitted. They went on to sign with Clemson and, show up for spring practice and all that sort of stuff. So Clemson tends to, hold on to recruits once they make that verbal commitment. Not that anything's ever 100%. Nothing ever is in college football nowadays. anything can flip on a dime. Anything can change at any moment or any day, especially in the world of NIL, in the world of the transfer portal, and the world of tampering that we live in college football. Nothing is off the table. But when Clemson gets those verbal commits, they tend to stick. So I look for at least a couple commitments immediately following this weekend, and then, like I said, hopefully that translates into some momentum. And it's good that you get all these guys on campus together, right? Especially with your 11 guys that you already have committed in the class.
Definitely.
Because what they're going to do when they're there. They're going to be pressuring those dudes like, hey, come on, go ahead and commit. Like, why are you going to go look at that school? You might as well just go ahead and commit to Clemson.
You love it here.
Yeah, you love it here. We want to play together. Let's go ahead and lock it in, So it helps having those guys there as an extension almost of your recruiting pitch, and your coaches that are there, and your support staff, and all the guys that are showing the best of Clemson. You got your players that are committed in the 2025 class, and then you got some players that are currently on the roster. You got former players that come back that are, maybe in the NFL now to talk about Clemson and their experience and their development there. So it's a big weekend. There's a lot that goes into it. And I can't wait to see the type of commitments that Clemson will be landing, because I'm sure there'll be quite a few that commit either during this weekend. Sometimes it happens before the weekend's over. And then other times it happens as the week goes, that first week immediately following the recruiting visit. So it's going to be exciting news. I think we'll have hopefully some really good news to talk about in next Thursday's show, Jordan. Hopefully there's some exciting recruiting updates that we can give to the people, and maybe even some more recruitments that we could speculate about on next week's show. But we'll go ahead and leave the big official recruiting weekend there. More to follow, obviously, next week. And we can't wait to see who we land this weekend, who locks down their recruitment and verbally commits to the Tigers. And then we'll see how that translates to the rest of the season. But if you are in the live chat right now, we got 18 people in here. Please go ahead and hit that like button for us. If you're not subscribed and you like what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, please go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button. We do this show every Thursday, 8 p.m. We rarely, if ever, miss a show. And we're always here talking Clemson football and college football. You do not have to be a Clemson fan to come hang out with us or show up every week. We welcome any and all fans from different fan bases as well. So come hang out with us. It would be greatly appreciated. Get your comments in the comment section. Once we're done with the planned portion of the show, we will turn it over to the comment section, and we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about for about 30 minutes or so, depending on how much time we got left in the show. So with all of that said, Jordan, let's go ahead and transition into our next topic that we're going to talk about tonight. And one of the big things that we wanted to hit on the show tonight is some off-season work that some of our most prominent players that will play huge roles in either Clemson's success or their failure in the upcoming 2024 season. Some big names that are out there getting extra work in, putting in extra work. As you guys know, spring is over, right? Transition into summertime, and Dabo Swinney likes to refer to summertime as transformation phase for Clemson football. They end spring practice. They do exit meetings with not only Dabo Swinney himself, but they do exit meetings with each individual position coach. Everybody gets their marching orders for the summer. This is what you need to improve on, whether it be footwork, catching, body composition, whatever the case may be. They give them their marching orders, and then it's on that player because they're not allowed to have contact over the summer, obviously, with the coaches, at least on the field type stuff. So it's on that player to really stay disciplined and make those improvements that the coaching staff want to see. And I wanted to highlight a couple people, Jordan, that have been in the media lately as far as Clemson football goes. And first and foremost, let's talk about our freshman wide receiver, newly on campus, just fresh out of spring practice. showing up and showing out. If you guys remember back to the spring game, he had an amazing catch in the end zone. He had a pretty good spring game. You could see the athleticism, you could see the speed, you could see his ability to impact this offense while on the field. His big play ability, especially in the open field, and that is none other than Brian Wesco. If you guys all know, Brian Wesco was a 5-star forever throughout the recruiting cycle. And then right as 247 produced their final recruitings for the 2024 class, he went from a 5-star to a 4-star. Does that really matter? No, probably not. But the one knock on Wesco when he got to campus is he's a little lean, right? He's a little small. Is he going to be durable enough to run these routes across the middle and take these hits from college athletes, right? I think he's already been clearly putting in the work, Jordan. You were telling me earlier that he's already putting on the weight. He's already obviously up to 188 pounds, nearly gained 20 pounds already put on his frame, and he's only been at Clemson for what, 3.5 months now.
Yep. Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on Brian Wesco, the transformation that he's made so far in such a short amount of time, and what do you expect him to look like come weigh-ins for fall camp? Because you know how big of a deal those weigh-ins for fall camp is when Clemson posts that to social media and everybody's going crazy. You know, did you make your weight goals? Did you not make your weight goals? Whether that be gaining weight or losing weight. So where do you see Brian Wesco come fall camp?
Yeah. I don't think it can be overstated, you know, just kind of how big of a deal that is. And, you know, it's one of those little things that, you know, we don't really talk about a ton, you know, as college football fans. You know, us hardcore diehard hard fans are always like, okay, well, is he going to be big enough and all? But it's not something that you're constantly thinking about. But yeah, that was one of the biggest knocks on Bryant Wesco coming in was, yeah, he was small. I think he said at one point he weighed 166 pounds when he came in, which is, I mean, that's more than enough for high school. There's not many athletes that are going to be able to really take you down. And because he's just such an elite athlete, it didn't really matter. But you know, the fact that he's come in and really just kind of transformed his body. Even before he talked about this, I saw a video of him training back home, and I was like, he already looks bigger than when I last saw him in the spring game, and we saw him, you know, get to campus. Like his body looks different. He looks just a lot more filled out. And so I was like, there's no way he's not, you know, at least 180 now. And so when he talked about it, one of the funny things that he said was that, yeah, I didn't even really do anything crazy as far as the weight room was concerned. I just started eating more. I was eating more regularly than I was in high school. And, you know, that's kind of one of the things you don't even really think about. It's like, you know, for some of these kids, it's like this is their first time, you know, having somebody really, you know, monitoring their diet and making sure that they are, you know, getting the right nutrients every single day and having a strength and conditioning program, like all of that, you know, and just for some of these kids, it all of a sudden they without even really putting a whole lot of effort, you know, all of a sudden their body is transformed. And so that was one of the things he said. He's like, yeah, I didn't eat I just started eating as much as a normal person would, and I put on the weight. And so, yeah, it's a massive deal for Clemson. It's a massive deal for the wide receiver room and for the success of this offense because he's, you know, he has the frame. Like, I don't expect him to lose much of his explosiveness, you know, especially since he was so small coming in that it wasn't really, you know, that he was going to be able to put on 20 pounds and still be, you know, the athlete that he was before. So, it's a big deal. Makes him even more of a option and makes his body even more ready for the college game. So, and you asked, like, where do I think he'll be when fall camp comes? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he got up to, you know, close to 200 by the time we get to fall camp. So that would be really nice. I think that ultimately, I think that would be a good weight for him. Yeah, even if he was like a shy like 195,
Right.
but I think 200, at 6'2", I think that's good for a wide receiver, without putting on a ton of weight and losing a step. So yeah, big deal for Clemson, big deal for the wide receiver room, big deal for Cade. Big deal for Wesco himself, because it's important for his health and durability to just kind of put on that mass, and just for his ability as a receiver, it just makes him more of an option. So really good to see that he's making a lot of progress, because that was obviously one of the, as talented as he was, that was one of the big concerns. It's like, well, is he going to be, will we be able to play him as much as we want to? Because we're worried if like he takes a hit. It's like he's out for the count. So massive deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is very evident that Bryant Wesco will be a integral part of this offense and its ability to be explosive for the first time in probably 3 seasons. If this offense is going to be explosive, Brian Wesco is going to be a part of that explosiveness that this offense has. And it is very clear, very evident that he is taking his nutrition serious. He is taking his physical fitness and the hours that he must be putting in the gym, because look, man, like, it's not easy to put on that kind of weight in this amount of time if you're Brian Wesco. He's a leaner guy, right? He's not, he doesn't have the frame where he's going to quickly add muscle, right? It takes guys like Brian Wesco working a whole lot harder in order to maintain weight. So you can clearly see, we don't need to be watching Brian Wesco day in and day out like the coaching staff to know that dude's absolutely putting in every single bit of work that he possibly can. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't already be up 20 pounds, right? You said he came in at one point, according to him, he was 166. Well, he's 188. So that's 22 pounds already, right? So I can't wait to see if he's even remotely close to 200 pounds by the time fall camp rolls around. I'm telling you what, people better watch out, because dude he's the real deal. He's the truth. And as long as he's able to continue to be his explosive self, continue his athleticism at that weight, which I have no doubt that he will be able to, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with this coming season, and he's going to be a big key for this Clemson offense coming up in 2024. Now, Jordan, let's go ahead and flip the page to another key cog in the 2024 Clemson offense, and that is none other than our old buddy Cade Klubnik. Now, this dude has taken a lot of shots from Clemson fans since he's been on campus. I think we've even stated on this show that, we still believe in Cade. We believe that he can develop and become a really good quarterback for our Clemson Tigers. But we do, have to be honest and, look ourselves in the mirror and be like, honestly, he's not where we thought he would be at this point in time, right? Coming out of high school, Cade Klubnik was a guy that, he was going to be an instant success. If you asked a lot of Clemson fans, probably including us, and there was no reason to think any otherwise, because of the level of competition he played and dominated in Texas at Westlake. The kid absolutely balled out. He was a winner. He was a baller. He was a guy that, made really good reads, put his offense in positions to win games. And, the transition to college has not been the easiest for Cade Klubnik. He's had to work at it. It's been a slower transition than a lot of people thought it would be. But I tell you, one of the good things that you can rest assured is Cade is putting in the work in the offseason. He is trying to get better. If anybody thinks that Cade Klubnik is satisfied with the way that he played in 2023, you're wrong. Like, he knows. He knows his shortcomings. He's probably harder on himself than any of us possibly could be, right? We're not on here. Nobody's on the internet saying anything that he's probably not already said to himself. And I tell you, it's really good to see, when you open up social media and you see people tweeting out and you see articles written and you see this list of names that are working with Jordan Palmer over in California, and that is Cade Klubnik. Obviously, everybody knows Jordan Palmer. He works with the elite of the elite quarterbacks every single year going into the NFL draft. His ability to, get quarterbacks ready and develop quarterbacks is well documented. So we all know what Jordan Palmer can do. Cade Klubnik worked with him last offseason as well. Well, he's back over there this offseason, and he's got a couple of Clemson's receivers with him, Antonio Williams, Jake Brenningstool, to name a few, right? And they're over there. They're getting work. They're getting extra reps. They're gaining that chemistry together. So, Jordan, just what do you think when you see that on social media or that kind of article published about these guys flying all the way to California, working with a guy like Jordan Palmer, getting these extra reps? What does that tell you about not only Cade Klubnik, but Antonio Williams, Jake Brenningstool, just these guys as a group? What does that tell you about these guys?
I mean, it's massive. I mean, these guys came in the same recruiting class. So, obviously there's been I'm sorry, Jake Brenningstool will be a senior this year, but these guys have been around each other a long time, and they know what this season means for all three of them. It's a massive year for Cade. It's a massive year for Antonio Williams coming off of injury, being a junior. Now he came in as the stud freshman that was making plays back in 2022, and now he's already a junior. And so now he's one of the senior guys in the room, and he's expected to be one of the bigger contributors in the wide receiver room. Now, obviously, Jake Brenningstool is a senior, and this is his massive money year. You saw glimpses of what he could be last year, but obviously it wasn't what we all had hoped it would be, because the offense just was never on the same page, collectively. And so that I thought he should have had a bigger season than he did. And obviously this year is a massive year for him as far as his pro prospects are concerned. I think it's massive for them to be developing this chemistry and getting this work in, and Cade working on himself, being a quarterback. He was, a lot of times last year, as much as the offensive line struggled at times, and as much as they, just the turnovers really, really hurt this offense. Cade was his own worst enemy at a lot of times. Learning how to kind of iron and work those things out is one of the biggest things for whether or not Clemson is successful as an offense this year. I think that just those three going out there and getting a fresh perspective. I mean, I know Garrett Riley is the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, but it's always good to go out and learn from guys that have been working with quarterbacks for a really, really long time. And because Garrett Riley himself is still a young guy. I mean, we think about him as like, oh, he was the hottest offensive coordinator in the country when Clemson hired him, but guys, he's still in his mid-30s. Like, he's not like this seasoned coach, and there are things that he's learning and growing to become as a play caller and as a quarterback coach. He's learned from a lot of really good people, and obviously his last name carries a lot of weight and a lot of pedigree. But at the end of the day, you still learn more as you get older and more experienced, and you're not. Nobody's a finished product as a player or as a coach when they're young. So it's good for Cade and the receivers to go out and learn from a guy that has been and worked with quarterbacks that have done it at the highest level. And it's massive that they're just getting that work in and dedicated to improving, because we need all three of those players to be successful as an offense. And really cool stuff. It was nice to see them. I saw Cade. I think he was with, I don't know if it was Jordan Palmer's like kid or daughter or something. I saw a picture that he took. It was really nice. And then I saw the obviously the picture that Antonio Williams posted on his Instagram of all of them, just on the grass chilling. So that was cool.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I really do. Obviously this offensive success this season is going to start in the trenches. It does for every single offense. The trenches are super important. but next and maybe more importantly is the quarterback play, right? His ability to play within the system, to make the proper reads, to have the chemistry with his wide receivers is going to be key. And the fact that he is putting in this work in the offseason, and not only that, but he's got a couple of guys with him, right? It shows that closeness that they have. It shows that togetherness that they feel as teammates. And it shows that all three of those dudes are super hungry to improve over the summer, and they're ready. They're coming into the season hungry. That's what that says to me. And I couldn't be more excited because those two guys, specifically talking about Antonio Williams and Jake Brenningstool, we need those guys to have big seasons. We need those guys to be big parts of this offense, right? And I'm glad to see Cade continuing to work with a guy like Jordan Palmer, who has such a pedigree and proven track record of working with and developing high-level quarterbacks, right? So really good to see that sort of stuff coming out of the summer for Clemson, that we're just highlighting a few guys. Look, a bunch of these guys across the roster are putting in extra work. They're trying to develop. They're trying to get better. They are trying to transform, if you will, in the transformation phase, as Dabo Swinney likes to call it, for Clemson football. So I for one, cannot wait to see fall camp get kicked off and started, that official first day where they do the big weigh-in and they got all the cameras there and everybody's going nuts. I can't wait to see what everybody looks like when they show up, because I think this team should be hungry heading into the 2024 season. There's a lot of noise out there about Clemson, right? There's a lot of noise about, Dabo Swinney and the way that he goes about things, and Clemson as a football program, and how, they're on a downward trajectory, and, the dynasty's over, and, there's just a ton of talk about Clemson, and not pretty much none of it is positive at this point, right? So these guys should be using this as fuel this offseason. They should be challenging themselves. They should be getting better. And it seems that they are doing that, at least from a surface level look, which is as far as we're going to get as fans. So I'm excited to see how these guys roll into fall camp, and can't wait to see this version of the 2024 Tigers through fall camp. And then when they get to run out there August 31st against the Georgia Bulldogs, and we get to get that huge measuring stick early and find out where this
we do.
Super early. There will be no question of where this team is for Clemson. So it won't be like, we'll get to beat up on, Charleston Southern or the Citadel and, put up 40 points and everybody be like, well, it's just Charleston Southern. It's, we're kicking it off with, by most metrics, the best team in the country. So the toughest game we could possibly draw for the first game in 2024, we drew it. So these guys better be ready. And it looks like they're preparing and trying to be ready. So can't wait to see that. We got 29 people in the live chat right now, Jordan. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys hit that like button while you're in here. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Consider coming back and hanging out with me and Jordan. We do the All In Show every Thursday at 8 p.m. We would love to have you guys hang out with us and just, support the show in that way. We do have, as a part of the Voice of College Football umbrella of shows and channels, the Amazon link. It's in the description of this video. It's nothing that you have to do extra, obviously, other than using the link. You go shop on Amazon, doesn't cost you any extra. You buy what you would normally buy, and the Voice of College Football gets a little bit of a kickback if you use the Amazon link. So please go ahead and copy that link, save it in your notes, whatever you got to do. And just as you normally purchase items on Amazon, go ahead and put that link as you're doing the checkout. And we get a little bit of support from that. So that'd be greatly appreciated as well. Also support all the other channels as a part of the Voice of College Football. Obviously, you got the main channel with Mark Rogers, but you got a lot of the other team channels that some of you guys may or may not be interested in. Go show them some love. We would greatly appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. We're going to keep this rolling. We're going to roll right into our next topic, Jordan. And let's talk a little EA Sports College Football 25. I don't know if you know this, Jordan, but there's a long-awaited video game coming out really, really soon. And I'm sure you're excited about it. I know I'm excited about it. I'm sure there's a ton of people in the comment section that are excited about it as well. I think it goes live on July 19th, I
July
believe,
19th. Yes.
is when the game goes live. It's obviously available for pre-order now. And Clemson will be obviously one of the premier programs, according to yours truly, in the game. Probably the most premier program. They got the best uniforms. They look the best, so on and so forth. Best stadium, all that stuff. If you don't agree with me, it's okay. You're wrong, but it's okay. But there's been trailers, Jordan, come out of Clemson in the game. There's been trailers of Death Valley come out, trailers of some of the gameplay. What are your thoughts on this college football 25 game? It is made by EA Sports. Is it going to be a recycled version of Madden? Is the gameplay going to look similar? How are they going to address NIL? How are they going to address the transfer portal? Dynasty mode, all this kind of stuff. What are your thoughts? What have you read? What are you most excited about for this game? Just overall in the game, but obviously more specifically our Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, man. Just watching the trailer and seeing like basically the first thing. I mean, literally as the trailer opens, you hear the CLEMSON chant, in the background, and then it cuts to that beautiful shot of Howard's Rock and Death Valley. That was really just surreal for me. And Clemson was prominent. I mean, they were shown running down the hill later in the trailer. They were definitely one of the more prominent programs that were shown in that trailer, and so it was exciting because, and you can tell how much work that EA and Clemson themselves did to make this come to life. I mean, this is a game that's been in the works for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson reportedly sent like 7,000 different pictures of Memorial Stadium. And like of different angles so that they could create a as real to life model of the stadium as they possibly could. And they were Clemson, during the showcase in Seattle, they were one of the schools that was specifically commended for how thorough they were in making sure that everything was represented. They sent like hundreds of sound bites of Clemson's crowd noise, the chants, the traditions. They made a scale hill so that they could motion capture the players running down the hill. So that was really cool. So I'm really excited for this game, man, because I think Clemson is going to be one of those schools that has I feel pretty good about it being done justice. I haven't gotten any confirmation on whether or not Gathering at the Paw will be in it. It should be. I mean, the amount of detail I've heard they've put into this as far as getting these schools' traditions right. It better be. And but from everything that I saw in the trailer and the stuff that's kind of been leaked out, I think the game is going to be. I mean, at least from a presentation and visual standpoint, I think it's going to be really, really cool. Now, gameplay, we'll see. It is EA, and obviously the depth of the dynasty mode is probably my biggest that's one of the things that I really want to make sure that they get right, because people have been upset about Road to Glory and about it. I think that they said it's only going to be like 5, but you only be able to pick like 5 positions like in Madden, which that kind of sucks. I think it was like quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker, safety. No, cornerback. I don't even think you can be safety, cornerback, and running back.
Probably.
And so I was like, well, that kind of sucks. So I can't do a kicker Road to Glory if I want to. But, even back when, the original NCAA football games were coming out, I was always more of a dynasty guy. I love building programs. Like the Road to Glory mode. It was fun for a little bit, but the experience was kind of repetitive. So
Yeah.
I wasn't really concerned about that. But the dynasty mode, like in the depth that they've that has been kind of leaked out about it, about how they're going to handle, roster building and NIL and kind of the overall dynamics of a program. I think it sounds like they put a lot of work into it. Now the execution remains to be seen, but
Right.
I'm still excited about the game. I'm going to buy it anyway, even if.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It could be a recycled version of Madden, and I would still buy it. There is zero chance that I'm not buying the college football 2025 game. Like, there's zero chance that happens. I'm excited about it. It's exciting to finally see these trailers start coming out. It's encouraging, kind of some of the stuff that you're talking about of the work that they've put in. And I'm glad that Clemson put in all of that work themselves with getting them all the pictures and the videos and all the things that they needed to properly portray Death Valley, because, I mean, that's a historic place, man. If you've ever been to a night game in the Valley or, a big game it's just,
It's different, man.
I don't know how there's any NFL fans. Obviously, if you're an NFL fan over a college football fan, you've never been to a live big time college football game because the atmosphere is unmatched. I've been to NFL games. I've been to college games. They're not even close, dude.
No.
Like, not even close. College football is an amazing sport, and I'm glad that they're trying to capture the traditions and really, play to each individual school's, take on how they do things, because that's what makes college football special, right? It's all the traditions, it's the pageantry, it's that kind of stuff that at least us diehard fans, that's what we love about college football. I love watching Clemson run down the hill, right? I love gathering at the Paul, all that kind of stuff. It means a lot. Howard's Rock, all the storylines, the name Death Valley and how that came to be, and all the stuff that goes with each individual program, not just Clemson. But I'm glad that they're trying to capture that. I did read an article. I guess they had a small group of, a mix of reporters and YouTubers that got to go to EA headquarters and play the game for, I think, a 3-hour period of time. They got to have actual gameplay with, various teams. They didn't get to do Dynasty mode or Road to Glory or anything like that. It was just the regular mode of just playing games. But according to the guy that wrote the article, I can't even remember his name. I'd reference it if I could. But he was saying that it was better than Madden. It was not just a recycled version of Madden. I hope he's correct. I hope he's not just trying to be nice, because he got to play the game a little bit earlier than the rest of us. But he said the animations are much better. The tackling's a lot more realistic. The running game is a lot more realistic when you're leaning forward and all sorts of stuff like that. So let's hope all that stuff holds true. But again, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to buy the game anyway. I cannot wait to play this game. It's going to be so much fun. This is long overdue. We haven't had a college football game since 2014. The college football community is starving for this game. This might break all the records. I don't know what the EA records are for video games and copies sold and money generated off of it. But I'm telling you, this college football game, it may just like break the mold when it comes to
as far as their sports games are concerned. Yeah, I could totally see this outselling anything they've ever put out from a sports game perspective, man. Because it's like you said, it's long overdue, and at a certain point, it's like I can only go back and break out my old Xbox 360 and run NCAA 14 so many times before it's like, okay, well, when's the next thing? I love that game, but
absolutely. That might be the most played, football game of all time, just because everybody's been recycling and playing it for the past 10 years, just waiting on another college football game. But I guess silver lining for all of us, I guess college football purists, if you will, and liking the game, some of the more traditional parts of college football. This is the one good thing that has come from NIL and the possible revenue sharing and all that kind of stuff. We at least we got a college football video game out of it. So
Yeah.
I guess it's not all bad. You got to hunt the good stuff. You got to look for the silver lining and things. Can't wait for this game to come out. It's going to be absolutely electric. I can't wait to do dynasty mode with Clemson and try to build the program. And man, it's going to be so much fun, dude. I can't wait. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on here once the game finally comes out and we finally see the gameplay. We'll, give our opinion on what we think of it and how good the different modes are. And it'll be a fun topic to talk about while we wait on fall camp and everything to kick off.
Absolutely, man. And it's just a cool thing for the brand, Clemson, and they were obviously, I think they or I know they were one of the tier 1 programs that EA shelled out the most money to. They kind of did it based off of, the last decade and kind of your AP poll finishes and all that. But Clemson obviously was put front and center. And, the screenshot of Cade under center, which is kind of funny, Cade being under center against Georgia, that was kind of circulating around Twitter. We didn't even mention the Walker Parks.
I was about to say we got a bone to pick with EA real quick.
We got a bone to pick with EA because they did everything beautifully, but except for they did my boy Walker Parks so bad in that trailer. I was like, dirty, bro. I did a double take. I was like, that is a double wide. Who is that?
Yo, that looks like the offensive lineman that ate Walker Parks, dude. Yeah. Like, I don't even. Why they got to do our boy Walker Parks like that, man? That is dirty. Of all the work that they put into Clemson Stadium and their atmosphere and all that stuff, man, Walker Parks looked like he's about 450 in that game. They did my man dirty. If I was him, I'd be direct tweeting EA every single day until they fix that.
Man, he looked like a Big Mac away from a gastric bypass surgery, man. Like I was like,
this man looked straight off an episode of My 600-Pound Life, man, with a football helmet on. I was like, what in the world? There ain't no way he was running down that hill.
Yeah, they rolled him down that hill. He didn't walk.
Oh, shout out Walker Parks, man. I don't know why they did you dirty like that. Yeah. You don't deserve that. You're better than that. EA, do better. Do better, EA.
Do better, EA.
Tell EA you need more on that EA Sports video game check.
Yeah, I know. I hope they shelled out for the extra money. You got to pay like an extra $1,000 per pound you added on.
You got to. If you did me dirty like that, you got to cough up some more money. That's unacceptable. I don't know why they had to do a man like that. That was messed up. But again, can't wait to see the game. Hopefully they got our boy Walker Parks fixed up by then. Hopefully he don't look like he's about 450. But either way, maybe he'd be really good in run blocking. We'll just run up right up Walker
That
Parks.
Run block better be 99 with that.
Hand off to Phil Maffa right behind Walker Parks every single time. That's a first down every single time.
Oh man, imagine running counter and running into pulling Walker Parks.
I feel bad for whoever that is. They ain't gonna make it, man. They ain't gonna make it. It's not gonna end well. It is not gonna end well for them, man. But yeah, we can't wait. That's gonna be awesome. Shout out to EA. Shout out to Clemson for doing their due diligence and trying to make EA's job as easy as possible to portray the Clemson environment, because it is truly one of the most unique environments in college football. I haven't been to all the super unique environments in college football, but I have been to Clemson several times for big games, and that place is unmatched in my opinion.
Can't beat it.
All right, Jordan, we got 30 people still hanging out with us, 31 in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. This is the All In Show. We do this every Thursday at 8 p.m. Come hang out with me and your boy Jordan Bowman. Hit that like button while you're in here. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You don't got to be a Clemson fan. You could come hang out with us anyway. You could trash talk Clemson. You could trash talk whatever. We like to converse and chop it up with the comment section. And we're about to get to the comment section really soon, but we got one more segment, Jordan, and let's go ahead and get into it. That is none other than Around College Football. And the story that we're going to talk about tonight, Jordan, I think is a pretty unique story. At least this doesn't happen very often. I don't know that it's never happened, but I ran across this story this week. I put it in the notes on my phone so I would remember that we wanted to talk about it just because I thought it was kind of a neat story to talk about. And we're going to talk about Monte Harrison, and walk-on from Arkansas, 28 years old, former MLB player, spent 10 years playing professional baseball. I think 6 of it was in the minor leagues, 4 of it was in the majors. And now he is going back to football. He is a former 4-star recruit out of high school, but the MLB offered him, I think, $1.8 million to not play football and go professional in baseball instead. And he took it and had a fairly successful career. I mean, if you played 10 years in professional baseball, I would call that a pretty successful career. And now he's turning the page. He's going back to his old roots. And he committed to, well, I say committed, he walked on to Arkansas. He's a 28-year-old, like I said, former 4-star. What are your thoughts on this, Jordan?
Yeah, it's one of the it's a wacky story. It's something like that doesn't happen often. Obviously, really the only big example that people think of is Chris Winkie back in late '90s when he not walked on, but he took a similar path. He played in the minor leagues in professional baseball for a long time, and then committed to Florida State University at the age of 25. So even here, Harrison is 28. So this is a even more unique situation. But Chris Winkie, he obviously won a Heisman Trophy at the age of 28. So yeah, this is just another one of those things where at least it's not a COVID super senior type of situation, and he's a legit eligible. And not to say that COVID super seniors aren't eligible, but he's a normal enrollee by all technical perspectives. But obviously he's just a lot older than your typical walk on. But I thought it was a cool story. Getting to play his dream. He was a highly sought after recruit in both baseball and football, and obviously chose baseball and had a nice career, had a lengthy career, and decided, he's like, hey, well, I guess I've completed my main objective in life, and now I'm doing side quests. So I'm gonna just play college football, because why the hell not? And I'm sure he maybe wants to get his degree, and that was just a convenient part of it. And he's like, hey, I'd like to go to school and play football like maybe I thought I was going to at one point. So yeah, he's a walk-on. I don't know how good he is at this point. He probably hasn't played, a ton of football, and so I don't think it's going to be a Chris Winkie situation where he joins and becomes a superstar and wins a Heisman Trophy or anything like that. But I thought it was a cool story, and just kind of another example of how wacky this sport can be sometimes, especially nowadays with how COVID has impacted eligibility and all that. So I thought it was an interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was a fun story to bring up and talk about. I wish him the best. I hope he's successful. Maybe a little unfair playing against 17 and 18-year-olds. But
Yeah.
This is college football. It is what it is. He's eligible to play. What kind of role will he have at Arkansas? I don't have any idea. Or will he get on the field at all? I guess that remains to be seen. But it is pretty cool that somebody who spent a decade in professional baseball is now a walk-on at the University of Arkansas for football. Super interesting. Kind of funny when you think about it. But again, this is college football, man. Like, and this doesn't really have anything to do with this particular situation at all, really, Jordan. But I mean, just think about how much college football has changed in the past 5 years. Like, if we were to pluck somebody from 5 years ago and bring them to the future, 2024, it was like, hey, check it out. This is college football. They'd be like, what are you talking about? There is no way. There is no way that all of this has happened in 5 short years, but it has. And it's absolutely insane. It's hard to keep up. Every offseason has been major story after major story, major change after major change in college football. And the changes aren't done. It's going to continue to happen. And we just live in a super unique time, I think, for college athletics and more so college football. But I think eventually we'll get to a place where it's a little bit more stable, hopefully, a little bit less change every single year. Hopefully we settle into something that makes sense for the most amount of people possible, at least.
Absolutely, man. Wacky sport, but that's why we love it.
That's why we love it, man. It's fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to keep up with. And honestly, there's never really a dull moment, man. It's absolutely insane. But Jordan, that concludes the planned portion of our show tonight. We are going to turn it over to the comment section here shortly. So go ahead and get into the comment section, ask your questions, put any topics in there that you would want me and Jordan to talk about, our opinion about. We got a little bit of time here that we will devote to the comment section and chop it up with you guys for a little bit. We still got 29 people in the live chat. So again, if you haven't hit that like button, I know I keep saying it, but it's super important to us. Hit that like button. It helps us out. It's free for you to do, and it only takes you a second to do it. Also, click that subscribe button while you're right there. That subscribe button's right there. So hit that for us. Come hang out with us. We do this all-in show every Thursday at 8 p.m. Be sure to use the Amazon link for the Voice of College Football. Anytime you're shopping on Amazon, just go ahead and copy and paste that link that's in the description of this video. And you will be supporting the channel because we get little kickback from Amazon for that. Also support all the other channels under the umbrella of the Voice of College Football, starting with the main channel. And then we got a ton of team channels, some conference channels out there. So there's a lot of content out there for you guys to consume other than our show that we do here. Although, don't skip our show. Show up for our show.
Right.
But appreciate all you guys being here. Always super humbled by the amount of people that show up and care about what me and Jordan have to say about Clemson football and college football. It's truly amazing, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And last thing, just a quick reminder before, as we do every show, we hit the comments. Super chats get to the front of the line. So if you have a question that you really want us to answer and we might not get a chance to answer it, then and you feel like supporting the show, then feel free to hit that super chat. All right. John Sarian starts us off, asked this earlier in the show. He says he said this earlier in the show. He said this season might be more different than all the previous ones because the new and old SEC and Big Ten schools are throwing more money around than ever openly. And okay, so he's referencing the recruiting weekend and all of that. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's definitely been ramped up, and I think Clemson has just been more in more proximity because some of these recruitments have gone that way. Yeah, I don't know if it's any more than previous years, but I think certain schools have ramped up. And so, that's one of the things that Clemson has to contend with. And that's just kind of the reality of where things are till we get some kind of structure. But you're right. It's something that they always have to keep in mind. And some of the guys that Clemson was involved with earlier in this cycle certainly went the other direction because of that. Silver Fox says, I'm not worried about the defense. It's the offensive players committing or not. Cade is only as good as the line holds it together. I mean, you're right. And really, this is, for future quarterbacks as well. I mean, whether it's Chris Vizino, whether it's Blake Hebert, and anybody else that Clemson brings into the fold. It's a big deal for Clemson to kind of restock the cupboard and fill the room with guys that Matt Luke is confident in, and that he'll be able to develop, and that will be able to play in whatever system Clemson has in a couple of years. Because who knows, maybe it's not Garrett Riley, whether he moves on or whatever the case. But it's important that Clemson, as their goal is to kind of change the narrative about their offensive line production and all of that, and becoming more of a line of scrimmage team than they've been in the past. So, but you're right. It's a big deal. I think that certainly the emphasis has been more on the offensive line, not necessarily as much at the skill positions. But I think you already have some really good guys committed to you right now from a skill position standpoint. Between Marquise Henderson and Juju Preston, and obviously Gideon Davidson I'm extremely high on him as a running back. I mean, I think you're kind of trying to, just kind of hit your numbers. I don't know if they're trying to, knock, this class out of the park from a skill position standpoint, because you did so well last cycle, and because you still already have a lot of guys on the roster already who still have a lot of eligibility left, and that you're still pretty high on. So, offense is always going to be the concern around here because just of how the last few seasons have gone. But I think all of that will work itself out. And then he also asks, can Matt Luke get these current players retaught from what they were doing last season? Well, I don't want to say that they're being retaught because, again, it's the same system. I think a lot of things that they did last year weren't what they wanted to do, especially towards the back half of the season when the injuries started to pile up and things just weren't really going the way that they had hoped. But I think whatever, adjustment they have to make, I think Matt Luke is certainly in a better position to do it than his predecessor was, just because he's just seen it. He's seen it all at this point, the experience. I mean, when you are a offensive line coach, I mean, you, especially a guy that has been at multiple programs like Matt Luke has, I mean, how different schemes work and how you want your offensive linemen to block. And he's done it at multiple, Hugh Freeze, when he was with Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss, which is more similar to kind of what the scheme that Garrett Riley likes to run. I think honestly, some of his best lines were those Ole Miss offensive lines, even though the Georgia ones certainly had a lot more stars on them.
Yep.
And so I think he's kind of in a better position to make those adjustments and kind of be more in tune with what changes need to happen and what progressions need to be made with certain individual players, and kind of what they're teaching as a whole. So I think Matt, if there's anybody that could do it, it's Matt Luke. But again, we'll have to see.
I mean, look, he's absolutely going to develop this offensive line. Where they end up, that remains to be seen. But you can't question Matt Luke's ability. You can't question his track record. Look at all the All-Americans that he's produced. Look at the guys that he's put into the NFL. Look at, just the quality of offensive line that he's had at every single stop that he's been at. And I don't think Clemson will be any different. It's not going to be overnight. It takes time. Offensive line is one of those positions that is probably the slowest developing position on a college football roster. It just takes longer for those dudes to transition for whatever reason. So, it's not like he's going to click this magic button and just because Matt Luke showed up, suddenly all of our offensive line, problems go away. That's just not how it works. That's not reality. But with that said, we 100% got the right guy for the job, and he will make this offensive line better. No doubt in my mind.
I tend to agree. John talks about Gideon Davidson dropping in the 24/7 Sports rankings. Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, and John of all people, I know he doesn't give much thought to recruiting rankings, but it is just kind of one of those things where you're like, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, it's the off season, nothing's really happened, but again, they put emphasis on camps and stuff, and he's just not a guy that's showing up to these off-season camps and getting verified, measured, and all that stuff. And that's just ultimately that's going to ding you. And like I said last week, it's not even really that they're dinging you; it's that they're propping up other guys because they show up, and so that by consequence drops you. But Clemson knows what they got in Gideon Davidson. I feel really confident in what they got in Gideon Davidson. I think he's going to be a star.
Yeah, I mean, look,
here's
the thing that I always go back to when, certain guys, whether it be they drop in recruiting or climb in the recruiting rankings, right? At the end of the day, you recruited the same guy, regardless of how 247 feels about him today or 6 months from now. He's the same player, right? You have to trust that the staff made the evaluation. They obviously, Gideon Davidson was the guy they wanted, and they went and got him, and he committed early, right? So
yep.
That's what I always try to remember with these recruiting rankings, because I mean, you can get your emotions wrapped up into this stuff and be going crazy and like, why are they dropping this guy? Why is this guy rising? At the end of the day, I'm going to trust the evaluation of the Clemson staff. They recruited this guy, and if 247 wants to drop him in the rankings, hey, so be it. He's still the same player.
Absolutely. I love what we got in Gideon Davidson, and
and I'm not saying I'm not a person that says recruiting rankings don't matter.
Right.
They do matter. Like there is an evaluation process. Like they do matter to an extent, but when it comes to a guy that you recruited and now he's verbally committed and suddenly he's dropping in the rankings, I don't think that matters because you evaluated that guy. You thought he was good enough. You offered him. He committed. Who cares where he ends up in the rankings?
Yeah, and again, guys move up and down. I mean, the cycle's far from over. So it's like, hey, Gideon was the player of the year in the state of Virginia last year. If he puts up a monster season again and all of a sudden,
he'll probably move back up.
Yeah, so. Who knows? Yeah, it's one of those things. The official T asks, are we out of it for Pickett and Fegans? Yes, on Pickett. Fegans, I think that's a recruitment that's trending away, but you're going to take your shot. I mean, him being, getting him on campus is a big deal. And I never count Clemson out completely with a guy if they get him on campus. But yeah, DJ Pickett, that was a recruitment that trended away a while ago. Just obviously not as much of a fit and kind of where his recruitment was headed. And you can probably kind of read between the lines on what I mean by that.
Yeah.
New King God asks, quick question. If you had to switch one position group each week with the opponent you play just for that week, which position group would you switch with Georgia and so on? Okay, and so on through your schedule. Yeah, that might be something we have to do for a later show. Kind of like I think you asked a similar question about ranking on Clemson's position groups in comparison to the ACC. So those are ideas we'll have to do for a later show, but I'll have to write that down. And
I'm writing that down right now.
Do a show for that.
I like that. That could be a good segment. That could be a fun segment to do.
Yeah.
And just talk about, what position group. That would be really fun. I like that idea. New King. He's always got some good ideas.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, that would be really fun. Dylan Spell asks, likelihood of David Sanders committing. I'm assuming after this weekend. I wouldn't say very high. It seems it's pretty clear that just from just the vibes I'm getting that he's going to carry his recruitment through his official visits, which doesn't mean Clemson is out of it.
No,
because not every commit that Clemson gets out of this official visit weekend happens right after the official visit weekend. Right. Some guys go on other visits.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't go to all 4 of his officials.
Yeah,
I'd be shocked.
Yeah,
I think he's going to do his due diligence.
But
now, you can speculate either way. Is it good that Clemson gets in first, or is it bad that they get in first? Right? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't feel good about him committing this weekend or shortly after.
I certainly don't. But you like we said, sometimes all it takes is just one moment for like just everything to click, and he just
I mean, again,
guys have shut it down. Have had stated timelines that just kind of go out the window sometimes. It happens.
Like I said, he did grow up close. He did grow up a Clemson fan. Like, there are those ties there. So, maybe you get him on campus and he remembers, why he loves Clemson. He's like, you know what? I'm going to shut it down. It could happen. It probably won't.
Yeah.
It could happen. I'd certainly be ecstatic if that happened.
Jay asks, he says, I'm fully taking credit for Peter Woods and Barrett Carter being on the On3 top 100 players list. They heard my cry. LOL. Yeah. I mean, any list with not featuring those two is crazy to me. And you could argue for some other players that should be on that list. But definitely those two. I mean, Peter Woods was a stud as a freshman. Now we're going to see him at times on the edge. I'm excited to see that. We know what Barrett Carter is in his 4th year, and what he means to this defense. So, if they didn't, I would be if they weren't included, especially. I mean, but you could argue guys like T.J. Parker, Avion Terrell. I mean, I just it's one of those things, but. Can't have them all, and obviously the national opinion of Clemson certainly affects kind of even the evaluation of some of these players. Jake Brundingstool and Phil Maffa, guys that because Clemson didn't want to take a transfer portal player. It's like I'm not going to do my due diligence on the roster. That's how I'm not saying that's what On3 did, but I'm just when I hear these national writers and national publications talk and write about Clemson, it always seems like they don't really have much interest in what they actually have on the team, and it's all about what Dabo isn't doing and and not what he has done and what Clemson has done. Tiger Tom asks, how key do you think Luke was to building those national championship teams at Georgia? Do you think he can be effective this weekend? I mean, I think he was a massive part, from a recruiting standpoint. He was one of the best recruiters. And I mean, obviously the circumstances why he left was kind of the burnout, and, working for Kirby Smart is a challenge, I guess is the right way to put it. But I think he was a massive part of those teams and the guys that he brought there, and he coached them up. Georgia had really good offensive lines. Even after and even after he left, some of the guys that he brought in. So I think he was a big part of it. He wasn't there for very long, so I can't say he was he was one of the cornerstones, but he certainly was a massive, really big part of it, at least.
He brought in some big name guys there. Marius Mims. Broderick Jones, he brought in some big name guys to that offensive line group.
100%.
As he did when he was at Ole Miss.
Yep.
Same thing. With Laramie Tunsil.
Yep.
Greg Little, just he recruits high level offensive linemen.
Absolutely.
So I have no question on his ability to close the deal. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to land Sanders or, any other offensive line for that matter, a recruit for that matter. But he definitely has the ability, and he's got the track record to point to. The days of people negatively recruiting specifically along the offensive line against Clemson because they don't develop NFL talent over there, they don't got All-Americans over there, blah blah blah. The days of that's not going to work anymore because you got a guy like Matt Luke standing there, and he can say, "Well, yeah, Clemson doesn't have this track record, but I do everywhere I've gone, so it ain't going to be any different here." Right. So
absolutely. John says, I almost had a long, happy cry when I saw Antonio Williams' mom tweet about Cade, Brittany Stool, and Antonio working with Jordan Palmer together. Yeah, that was cool for sure, and encouraging.
Yep.
Dylan Spell asked a good question. He says, who will make more of an impact as a freshman wide receiver, Bryant Wesco or TJ Moore? Yeah, that's always let's let TJ, get into fall camp, but it's hard to say that he won't make an impact this year, for sure. I think he's too good not to play, just like Wesco is. I don't know. It's hard to put one. I think I would default to Wesco because he just has the leg up right now from being on campus, and since he's made the transformations from a body standpoint, which was kind of one of the concerns that we talked about. But TJ's a guy that wouldn't be surprised if he comes into fall camp just ready to go, like Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown did, but just at a higher level because he's a NFL built.
He's a better prospect coming in.
Yeah,
it's like
for sure.
Not taking anything away from the rest of those guys.
Yeah,
he's a better prospect coming in.
Absolutely. So I don't know. I could totally see, just from a projection standpoint, just saying TJ Moore, but from what I think Wesco is dynamic in his own right, and he's gonna have to, you're gonna have to play him, even though we feel really good about some of the other guys in this room.
Yeah, but he's gonna force you to play him. You're gonna have no choice.
Yeah,
he's not. But Wesco ain't gonna leave you any choice. You have to put him on the field, right?
Absolutely.
Which is, to your point, we feel really good about Antonio Williams and Troy Stellato and
Tyler Brown.
There's some dudes, man. It's going to be fun to watch. I would lean Wesco for all the reasons you stated, right? He's been on campus. He got to go through spring practice. He's obviously, probably for the first time in, his football career, getting to work with real nutritionists and real strength and conditioning coaches who, set up a custom plan for you and your body type and what you're trying to do. And obviously he's taking that serious. So for those reasons, I would say him. But again, TJ Moore, you saw what he did in that All-American game, right? You saw what he's done in Florida high school football for, the past, few seasons, right? So, he could walk in here and just, take over. That's a possibility as well. But I would lean Wesco just because he's been here longer.
Absolutely. Isaac Smith asked, join late, thoughts on Elijah Griffin canceling his official. We still got a shot on him, or is he a Georgia? Yeah, that ship has sailed.
He gone.
He's gone. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, it is what it is. That one's gone. We lost that battle.
Yeah,
it's okay though.
Yeah, for sure.
Would have loved to have one, but it just didn't work out.
I think I saw somebody in the chat. I didn't start it, but I saw somebody ask about Josh Petty. Yeah, he's not going to be there either. That should be pretty telling about where that recruitment is. So,
those are
Isaac Smith asks, also thoughts on Gideon and Jordan Young dropping so much in the rankings. It always seems like the Clemson guys end up dropping in rankings. Well, it depends on what rankings you're talking about. I guess 24/7 Sports, probably, they just came out with a ranking, but Rivals came out with one as well, and Jordan Young jumped up. And so It depends. But kind of just to go back, this is just kind of one of those things that happens when you don't, these recruiting services want you to go to camps. They want you to do all this stuff in the off season. And if not, the guys that do are just going to get more, you're just going to get bumps. And by consequence, you're going to fall. So that's just kind of the reality of the recruiting game. And, but like both of you, like I said, I mean, I feel really good about what you have in Gideon Davidson, and Jordan Young is a guy that has been high on Clemson throughout the process, and we'll see kind of where, kind of what happens coming out of this weekend. All right. Dang, we're already at a. Oh, I starred this. I wanted to star another one too that I missed. Wasn't a question, but I did want to talk about it. New King God asks, better wide receiver while at Clemson, Mike Williams or Sammy Watkins? Man, I got to go Sammy. But that one's hard. They were different. They were different receivers. But yeah, Sammy is one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen put on a Clemson uniform. But at the same time, Mike Williams, from a hands, like at the catch point, from a physical standpoint,
high point the ball, physical,
hops, like he's second to none. And
take a hit,
and Mike Williams certainly played a lot better when they played South Carolina than Sammy Watkins did. So,
for sure,
he didn't play the quality of Gamecock teams that Sammy Watkins did either.
I still remember him carrying number 7 on his back.
Yeah,
from like the 10-yard line all the way.
That play lives rent free in my head, and he didn't even fall over. He carried him in and then he just shrugged him off. And
just like, get off me, bro. I got to start my celebration now.
And then I'll never obviously the catch he made on the final drive of the national championship game. Man. That one doesn't get talked about enough because of Hunter Renfrow.
On the sideline when he just like reached out. I mean, dude, so many clutch catches in Mike Williams' career. But
I contend to this day that if he doesn't go down early in 2015, they beat Alabama in the national championship.
Yeah,
I really think so.
I think him
and Mackenzie. If Mackenzie Alexander especially was healthy, I think we might be talking about Clemson as back.
He had those hamstring injuries, man. It was it's all over. Those 2 injuries definitely hurt us for sure.
100%.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda though. But they definitely would have changed the dynamic of that game for sure. But I would lean Sammy as well. Part of me wants to go with Mike Williams, but that's probably a little bit some recency bias and the fact that he brought a national championship to Clemson. But I think Sammy was an overall better wide receiver at Clemson.
Yeah.
But it's close.
I think so. Sammy was just from a skill set standpoint when he was healthy, man. There very few like in college football history. Just the speed, the hands, the athleticism. It just is different. It's just different. You get him out in open space. He was a downfield threat. You could do basically anything with him.
And the fact that Sammy Watkins, Nuke Hopkins, and Martavis Bryant were on the same roster is insane.
I think about that all the time, man. It lives rent free in my head. And then you think about what you had. You had at tight end. You had Dwayne Allen and Brandon Ford.
I'm saying, bro, like
you
all
had Adam
played
Humphries.
on the same team. On the same team.
On the same team, man.
Dwayne Allen, Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant, Nuke Hopkins. Like, what are we doing? Seems like some, underachieving with that type of talent on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, the offenses certainly weren't the problem in those days.
No, they weren't. Yeah, no, for sure. But it
Man.
just, you look back, at some of those rosters that Clemson was able to put together, and you're like, man.
And you had Andre Ellington at running back. Like, oh, man, good Lord, man.
The list just goes on and on, man.
Oh, brother, man, those offenses were stupid. Going back to like the NCAA games, like Clemson was so much fun to play.
Yeah.
It was, they weren't. Obviously they didn't have names, so like Sammy was wide receiver number 2 or whatever, and then
whatever it was,
just like
Taj Boyd out there gunslinging to him, man, like fun times, dude.
Good times, man. All right. Let me see. Did I star another one? I did. Oh, Gutter Rich says nobody's talking about Marquise Henderson yet. Dude is amazing. Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy that, kind of because of where he plays, it's just not a lot of people get to see him play at HBP, but like, man, he's dynamic. He's dynamic. He's listed as a running back on a lot of sites, but he's definitely Clemson loves him as a receiver. I'm excited to see what they do with him. Speed, just the ability with the ball in his hands he's the best in the state and one of the best, I think, in this class, just as a pure playmaker. I'm hoping to, go down there one of these days and see him in person, but yeah, he's a lot of fun. Excited for him. JS, will we have a 1,000-yard receiver this year? I'm going to lean no, just because I think there's too many guys in the room that are going to play. I don't know if there's enough receptions for everybody for that to be the case. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, though. But again, there's a lot of guys that are looking for touches, and that's going to be something that you're going to have to manage. But I would lean towards no, even though I would love to have an 1,000-yard receiver, because that used to just be a given for a while here, and now we're going on 4 years without one. It was Amari Rogers, right? I think he had 1,000 in the COVID year. But so would be nice, but I'm leaning towards no.
Yeah, I say no. No, I don't think so. Not at all. The room's just so congested. You can name off guy after guy, and it's quality depth there, right? Like, it's guys that have produced for you in the past, and that you would expect would not only get better, but continue to produce. So I don't think so. I think it's going to be, like we talked about last show, a lot of wide receiver by committee. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I just mean we got a lot of good dudes, I feel like, in that wide receiver room that can, really help this offense. So I think they're going to rotate a lot.
Absolutely. Isaac Smith says, y'all remember Mike Bellamy? I always thought he was going to be a stud. Yeah. It's kind of funny how some of these guys work out. Yeah, I remember Mike, and 5-star pedigree, all that, just never really put it together. He was fine. He was fine running back, but obviously he got overshadowed over the years, and just it never really worked out. But yeah, man, when he came in, I thought he was going to be a stud.
Yeah. It happens like that sometimes, though, man. Like, it's just, that's football. That's college football. Some dudes just don't translate to the next level.
Yeah.
You see it every year, in college, transition into the NFL. Some dude was absolutely elite in college, and then, gets to the NFL, and you're like, man, this dude looks like a bum out here.
Yeah. For sure. Tiggs asks, who you got for the greatest Clemson player ever? I always, whenever I ask that, I feel like I have a different answer every time I ask that question, because it's so difficult, and especially because especially the last 10 years have made it very difficult. Um, I mean, it's the default answer would be one of Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence, just because won you national championships, but like greatest, because honestly, some people when they say greatest they mean the best, and that can always that if you ask me who the best Clemson player of all time is, like regardless of position, like value and all of that, like I might give you a different answer. Um, Man, it's difficult. Like
I'd go greatest of all time for me would be Deshaun Watson. Um, and that's
I think
probably,
that's where I land too.
it's just, I don't, yeah, I mean, it's Deshaun Watson for me. Just, I mean, his ability to elevate those around him, his playmaking ability, um, you know, the grit, the determination that dude played with, the toughness he had, some of the injuries that he played through. I mean, you think back to his freshman year, you know, dicing up South Carolina on, one leg with a torn ACL. I mean, just like all the great games that dude was involved in. You think to the Notre Dame game, the Hurricane game,
Oh,
right? The Louisville game, the shootout with Lamar Jackson, the two national titles, obviously, that he played great in both of them. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be him just because not only his talent, uh, but his ability to elevate those around him to be a leader. And then, obviously what he brought to Clemson in, conference titles and national title as well.
yeah.
He
I
kind
think
of
I'm
he's
with you
he's that dude that kind of propelled Clemson into, the elite of the elite in college football.
100%.
Still a travesty that he didn't win a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah. Oh, I don't like to talk about that.
I know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think and yeah, as far as especially his legacy, greatness, yeah, it's got to be Deshaun. Best is always an interesting thing because that's
Yeah,
like regardless of like kind
yeah,
of the career accolades and all that, like really
right.
just like who you were as a football player at your position. Like then I could have a number of different answers, even Deshaun Watson included. But like, man, you go through and you talk about Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. We can go back to
Man.
the Danny Ford years with Refrigerator Perry. Um, I mean, a Perry Tuttle. We can, even some of the players in, the dark ages of the '90s. Brian Dawkins. Like,
Man, that dude.
there's a lot of good candidates. I mean, hell, like even like the defensive linemen that Clemson has had over the years, Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence, obviously jump off the page. Dexter Lawrence, especially was a, I don't even think we realized how much of a freak of nature he was until he got to the league.
No,
But man, like
he's an
he's one of those
animal.
guys that regardless of position. I already mentioned Sammy. I think there's a lot of candidates, but yeah, greatest has got to be Deshaun.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do a couple more. Dylan is picking Deshaun Watson just recency bias? That's who I would pick myself, though. I don't think it's recency bias. I mean, it's just hard to. I mean, what he brought to the program as a singular, like he
Yeah.
was the face of Clemson in those years, and he brought Clemson to heights that they hadn't seen since the '80s, and just the way he did it,
Right.
like just he elevated everything about Clemson, and so that's just it's hard to hard not to pick.
You could go as far to say, like, for Deshaun Watson in particular, like, you could go as far to say is like he's the reason we were able to land a player like Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
he paved the way for a guy like Trevor Lawrence to look at Clemson and be like, you know what?
I
Yeah,
forget to mention
I'm gonna go
CJ
there.
Spiller.
You know,
I forgot to mention CJ Spiller. I just thought about that.
CJ Spiller, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the list is huge, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think like part of me is like, is that recency bias? So like I get the question, but I don't like when you look at Deshaun Watson's career and you really go back and think about what he accomplished in his career, not just the national title, but like go back, to how he played as a freshman and like the steps and the development that you saw over the course of his career, and the big games and the way that that dude showed up every single time, in big game situations. I, you know, I don't think you could put anybody over him, when you're talking about the greatest Clemson player of all time. But
Yeah, I think so. New King guys says Brian Dawkins is the greatest pro Clemson player ever. Watson's the best college Clemson player ever. Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue as far as Brian Dawkins. I mean, Hall of
you
Fame, Hall
you
of
go
Famer.
watch some Brian Dawkins
Yeah,
videos, like highlights back in the day with the Eagles, man. Like
yeah,
that
man,
dude,
he was different.
like I don't know, like if he was possessed when he walked onto a football field. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say he's possessed. He's a God fearing man.
He probably would not take too kindly
Yeah,
to that
I'm
description.
sorry. Let me take that back because Brian Dawkins is a God fearing.
He was possessed by the Holy Spirit. That's what he said.
That dude was like outside of his mind when he walked onto a football. From like his walk out of the tunnel to like the hits that dude delivered, like holy moly, man! Like, man, if you're a receiver and you're catching a ball across the middle with Brian Dawkins, man, like you might want to just make a business decision and go ahead and trip and fall or something, because that dude was a beast. But he couldn't play in today's NFL. He could not. Like he all of his salary would go to fines. He would be getting fined every single game, for just destroying the opponent.
Absolutely. John S. I'm not saying it's a big potential get, but do you think we'd even get a visit from a guy like Hardy Watts if Streeter plus Austin were still recruiting? In my honest opinion, Garrett Riley and Matt Luke are the draw. I mean, it's hard to say, but you definitely can't deny the impact that those two and just the gravitas those two names have over Brandon Streeter and Thomas Austin. And no disrespect to those guys, but obviously Matt Luke has been in the industry a long time, well known by everybody, and Garrett Riley is one of the hottest names in football. And so it's a different. It's different when a recruit is like, oh man, I just got a call from Matt Luke at Clemson, and he did all this and this at Georgia and Ole Miss, and he's like, yeah, this is a big offer. Like it's just a different type of like. It is what it is. It's a different type of feel, like when you get that kind of interest. And so, getting Hardy Watts on campus is big, especially since he's still trying to. I think he's a guy that's still very flexible and in his recruitment. And so, you getting that first impression and really leaving an imprint, could pay a lot of big dividends. Michigan is also involved with him. And obviously they've done a good job of developing offensive line. So we'll kind of see how that goes. He's from Massachusetts. So there's a lot of moving parts there. But I think that, getting the first crack at him and getting him on campus so quickly after expressing interest is definitely a sign of kind of what the draw Clemson has compared to previous cycles. All right. John Sarian says, yeah, Spiller on returns. Whoa, buddy. Yeah. Nobody, second to none in Clemson history, really.
Elite.
Yeah.
Elite.
Yeah. Justin Miller was great during, in that decade, but No, it's CJ Spiller, man.
Yeah.
Wish he could have got an ACC championship before he left, but
man, dude,
man.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah,
but
so close too. He had over 200 all-purpose yards.
Hey, he did all he could do, man. Yeah. He did all he could do. It's unfortunate. You hear him talk about that and like, the turf toe and the stuff that he was dealing with, and he was gutting it out. He was giving all he had.
I have a friend that was at that game and saw him crying in the tunnel after the game. I was like, man, it just he gave his all.
It's cool to think about some of these, guys from the, early Dabo Swinney era and stuff like that, and like the impact that they've had on the program and like where it is now.
Absolutely.
Just like Spiller's dedication to like, accept the changes that happen at Clemson and come back and, fight for that paw on his helmet. And then, you think back to the story that, Dabo tells about CJ Spiller's pro day and what a disaster that was. And, then that translates itself to, the first version of the indoor practice facility. And, now Clemson has a, $60+ million football facility and all this other stuff that, has been put, so you think about players like that, just had impacts, like ripple effects through the program. And you look at it today and you're like, man, like if CJ Spiller wouldn't have stayed or wouldn't have come to Clemson, period, like, it's kind of like, where would this program be, right? Like there's guys like that you can look back to and be like, man, like they truly did change the trajectory of the program.
100%. Tiger Tom says the 81 team was a room full of stars, locker to locker. I mean, yeah, team was loaded when you go down the list of names. Homer Jordan, Perry Tuttle, Refrigerator Perry, Terry Kynard. Like, man, like different group of guys. They brought it home, and that was obviously it wasn't alive for that, but I've watched that. I watched that Orange Bowl at least a million times.
Oh yeah,
it's a different. It's really cool though. It's one of those things like, man, I wish I could have seen it for myself, but that squad was the first, to win a national championship and the first to really just solidify Clemson and put them on the map and realize the potential that the program had. And obviously that was a really good decade overall for Clemson, minus a couple, minus the probation years.
We don't need to talk about that.
We don't need to talk about that. But still, it showed that you can win at Clemson, and it obviously set the precedent for what would later be done. 35 years later. So.
Oh yeah.
Isaac Smith, this will be our last question. He says, how do y'all think Spiller's done as a running back coach, recruiting, et cetera? I'm not in a position to, truly evaluate job performance, but I think like CJ has really grown into his own. I think he was one of the hires that, I don't think anybody complained when it was made. It's like, oh man, we're bringing the prodigal son home, and just a Dabo guy through and through, and man, his pedigree is going to help him on the trail. I think a lot of us believe that, and for a lot of reasons that it didn't happen that way. But I think from a coaching standpoint, I think he's done a phenomenal job, and I think it took some time, but I think he's got this recruiting thing down better, and I think that was one of those hires that, the first couple of years we were kind of like, all right, is this really going to work out? But I think one of the things about the running back position is you kind of have more time to kind of work things out. Like there's not as much of a like people just don't tend to call out running backs when things aren't going well.
Right.
That's kind of the reality of it. Like you rarely see people say, "Man, it's like if our running backs were better, we'd be a really good offense." Like,
Yeah.
which is kind of strange when you think about it, because running backs are an important part of the offense, but they just don't get the same kind of like ire that the quarterback or the offensive line does.
Yeah.
And they kind of when running backs aren't successful, especially, it's like kind of the offensive line is the one that takes the heat sometimes, because it's just harder to evaluate running back play, from just from a TV screen. Like it's like, oh man, is he making the right cuts? Is he
Right. I mean,
is he following the right blocks? Is he?
It's hard to know his assignment on any given play, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless you're deep diving into X's and O's and, doing all that, like you're
Right.
just like, oh yeah, oh his yards per carry are pretty good,
Yeah,
blah,
people evaluate running back from a very base level. So,
yeah.
I think that afforded CJ some time to kind of get his feet under him. But I think his running backs have played well every year for the most part. Like from his first year, and Will Shipley coming in and really riding the ship there and the way he handled the Lynn J. Dixon situation. A lot of people forget that. I was like, wow, oh my God, I haven't heard that name in forever. But that was kind of a thing that had to be nipped in the bud, and some hard decisions had to be made about that. And CJ, like I think he handled that about as well as he could.
Yeah.
And I think just the room is. I've never watched the running backs and been like, man, we're not very good there. And and I think the future of the running back position, obviously, I think is very bright. And that I think that's one of the things that I think ultimately has given me a positive view of how CJ has done.
Yeah.
Because obviously the first couple of years, from a recruiting standpoint, he was not landing a lot of the top guys that they wanted.
Right.
And it was a struggle to really close the deal on some of the higher priority guys.
Yeah.
But I think they've done a good job of identifying their guy early and really working and getting him in the fold. They did it with David Ajumame last year, and now Gideon Davidson this cycle. So
Yeah.
I think
the big thing for me with CJ is he had to settle into his own style of recruiting, and he's talked about this on different interviews about it was a learning curve for him, not just the coaching piece because obviously he understands X's and O's and he understands the running back position in and out, but you have to be relatable. You have to be able to approach guys in different ways and manage your room, right? And then he's talked about the learning process of being a recruiter and figuring out what works on the recruiting trail and what doesn't work on the recruiting trail and how to build those relationships and all of that stuff. So I think CJ Spiller would be the first guy to tell you that he had a lot to learn when he became the running back coach at Clemson, but I think he's done well at adjusting, at learning, at growing as a coach. And I think he'll continue to grow. And, I don't think that's going to be much of a problem for Clemson going forward, because clearly he's figured out his approach to recruiting and it's starting to work.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And we'll obviously continue to watch and see. Obviously, we feel good about running back one. We still have some questions, like who's going to step up in that behind Phil Maffa, and that's ultimately going to be a decision that CJ and the staff is going to have to come to, and we'll see how that kind of plays out. But the future of the position, feel really good about, and I think CJ is a guy that's a really good asset to have on the trail at this point, because he can sell Clemson better than most anybody, just because of his pedigree and what he's meant to the program, and obviously just all the success he had. So
yeah.
Yeah. I think that will do it for the listener questions, and kind of wrap up our show.
Sounds good, man. Another great all-in show in the books, Jordan. Great to be here tonight. We still got 24 people hanging out with us in the live chat. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out with us to the very end. Thank you for all of your comments. If you haven't already, please hit that like before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe button. Me and Jordan do the All In Show every Thursday at 8 p.m. We will also post timestamps in the description of this video immediately following the show. That'll help you navigate the video and the various topics that we covered tonight. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you for showing up and supporting the channel. Truly do appreciate that. Don't forget to use the Amazon link in the description of this video. Anytime you go buy anything on Amazon, just put our link in there, and it will help the Voice of College Football team over here to get a little kickback from Amazon. So that'll be greatly appreciated. It won't cost you any more. It's just a simple copy and paste. Our boy John D'Amato is in here late, but he made it. Thank you for showing up, my man. Appreciate you. You guys go check him out on the Michigan channel. He does a lot of good content here on YouTube. Go show him some love. That is John D'Amato. He also does a lot of work on the Voice of College Football Michigan channel. So go check him out. And tell them that the guys over at the Clemson channel sent you. But that's going to do it for tonight's show, guys. We've been on here for about 2 hours and 10 minutes. We'll wrap it up. We will see you guys next week, next Thursday. We'll probably be talking some recruiting. Hopefully we got some good news coming out of our big recruiting weekend. And until then, guys, can't wait to see you. Until next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. We'll see you in the next one. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.